What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. As you can see, it is the weekly NASCAR preview over halfway through the season. And remember last week when I promised that I am not just a NASCAR channel, I will be coming out with some stuff. I can guarantee there will be another episode in addition to the NASCAR weekly series that is not NASCAR. It's not going to be a NASCAR video. I have another sport coming, another professional sports leagues coming next week. Also, obviously next week's NASCAR preview episode. But until then, let's go over week 21, the 20th points race of the season, Sonoma. Storylines. What a shocker. SVG wins a road course. Won this event in 2023, the first time they've ever done a street race in it happens to be in Chicago. You can argue that win is what has sparked his career in North America. Didn't win it last year. It was rainy the previous 2 years. The first year without rain, which is a good thing. And SVG, in a lot of ways, dominates it. I mean, Michael McDowell looked like he had something for him until Michael McDowell wrecked. There are some other guys who I think are solid road course racers that were up there, got some points. But in the end, it was SVG showing why he is such a special talent at these types of tracks. And in speaking of Michael McDowell, the guy that got the lead and stayed in front of him, is he a real threat to win this week? Clearly there was something going on with the throttle issues, but clearly they had found some speed in that car. And I think Michael McDowell and Spire has done a good job of bringing fast race cars to road courses. Is this finally the week for Michael McDowell to win and throw another wrench? Could it be AJ Allmendinger? AJ Allmendinger had a good run last week at Chicago. He's a very good road course racer who has multiple wins already at Sonoma. Could somebody like AJ Allmendinger or Michael McDowell clinch their spot in the playoffs from the wrong side of the cut line? Can anyone beat SVG? I think so, especially at Sonoma, because to me, obviously SVG is just an incredibly talented road course racer in stock cars, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But I will also say this. When it comes to tracks like Sonoma and Watkins Glen that have been in the NASCAR Cup Series for decades, and these guys have raced him in the Xfinity and the Cup Series for years and years, I think his advantage slips a little bit because of the experience that the field and also just the other drivers have in making fast cars and making fast laps for these. So my gut instinct is to say, yes, any people can beat SVG. And you saw Michael McDowell take it to him. You saw Christopher Bell win earlier this year. Although usually if SVG doesn't win a road course, there's probably something else going on. But I think at this track in Watkins Glen, particularly, which I believe are the next two road course races, people can take it to SVG because they probably have more experience than him. When experience is equal or even close, I think SVG is right there. But I think the rest of the season, the last three road courses, right, are all road courses that NASCAR's raced on for a while now. When Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and then in the playoffs, the Roval. And while he probably wins one of those, and he's definitely will be a strong competitor, I just think that the field is closer to him there, or at those three racetracks, especially this weekend. Who's going to win the regular season? William Byron had an awful day, finishing last, collecting only 1 point, and a lot of the ground. Well, when the guy who's first place in regular season points finishes last, literally every other driver has an opportunity to make up ground and really, really make up some ground if you're close to him, and a couple of drivers did. So I'm interested to see. William Byron has been first in points all season. Does he keep it, or these last couple weeks do a couple drivers run him down? There's a lot of guys within 100 points. There's some guys within 50 points now. I am very interested to see if this cold streak continues for Byron and if guys can continue to reel him in on points. Who's going to win the regular season? William Byron is the favorite because he has the lead, but Chase Elliott has kind of been really old school this year. Just get solid finishes, get points. Maybe he hasn't had the ceiling at every single race some of the other drivers do, but he's just been old school, find a way to good finishes. Larson isn't done yet. Denny can get some points, and even Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick are within 100 points as well. Talking about TV broadcasting, I'm hoping TNT gets better. I don't know if it's quite as bad as Fox, but they certainly have had some similar issues as Fox, in my opinion. And it sucks because I think when NASCAR is covered properly, it enhances the sport, makes a fun sport better to watch, right? But TNT, unlike Fox, is, I think, acknowledging some of the issues they've had, and because of that, it makes me more hopeful that they're going to continue to get better until NBC takes over the rest of the way. In-season tournament updated. Yeah, a little bit more chaos. Obviously, it's hard to know if this was the exact reason why, but you obviously saw Bubba Wallace and Alex Bowman kind of beefing it out last week and ended in one of them getting wrecked. You have an all-legacy Motor Club matchup between Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek, but I still think if you're looking at favorites, it's Chase Elliott, it's Tyler Reddick. And honestly, I think I put Tyler Reddick as the favorite to win. Who has a right to be mad about the weekend? Now, rather than making a whole bunch of individual points about controversy, I figured this was the best way to address the fact that there was a lot of controversy this weekend, both with NASCAR officials and officiating and between drivers. So let's get into who has a right to be mad about the weekend. Yeah, obviously anybody that got caught up in that Hocevar wreck and it ruined their day or ruined their strategy. I mean, listen, but at the same time, that's a racing incident, right? Did Hocevar make a mistake that hurt multiple people? Yes, but drivers make mistakes on the track all the time. It's nothing egregious. Like, it's not as bad as intentionally wrecking somebody. Hocevar made a mistake, got a lot of other people caught up in it, unfortunately. But you can be frustrated about that, especially because now when you're Carson Hocevar, you've already pissed off half the field. So doing that doesn't help. I also think part of it is a spotting issue. I mean, Chicago has a very, very narrow track in many places, including that spot of the track. And it's hard for the spotters to see everywhere. So I think there's a slight spotting issue, a slight track width issue. And then when that does happen, it causes a lot of cars to get bunched up. Who has a right to be mad about the weekend? Not Bubba Wallace. Now I know what you're going to say. Well, Ben, Alex Bowman wrecked Bubba Wallace. I think, and in my opinion, Bubba Wallace had no business holding Alex Bowman. Well, I mean, you can fight for one spot, but I think like old school racing, right, you'd let him by. I personally think Bubba Wallace, and again, I think this is also a spotting issue with the way these tracks are spotted, but I think it was just a racing deal, and Bubba cleared himself when he wasn't clear, and after you guys had been banging doors for 30 seconds, you know what I mean? You've been banging doors through multiple corners and straightaways. Alex Bowman ain't going to lift for you late race when you're banging doorways and there's not a lot of time left, right? Bubba cleared himself up and he wasn't cleared and he got dumped because of it. I think it's just a racing incident. And I think it was a racing incident based on the way Bubba reacted. He didn't go to Bowman's car. He didn't yell at Bowman. He took responsibility and he says, I have to be better. And I think usually with Bubba Wallace's reactions, especially as he's trying to be a more mature driver, you can tell if he thinks it's his fault or not. And I think he doesn't think this one was right, or it was his fault. Joey Logano has a right to be mad. Ross Chastain, being Ross Chastain. Listen, I try to stay impartial when I'm talking about anything on this channel. And before everybody goes and starts calling me a Ross Chastain hater, I will be 100% honest. I am a Ross Chastain hater. But you know who also I hate? Joey Logano. And I think both of them have earned hate, to be honest. So what I'm saying is, while I'm not going to tell you who my favorite driver is or if I even have a favorite driver, I will tell you that I am not being biased. I'm not a Logano or Chastain fan. I don't particularly care for either one of them. They're probably my least two favorite people in the series. So when I say that, understand that when I'm saying Ross Chastain was an idiot, It's not because I dislike him, because I love to see Joey Logano pissed off, and most of the time I don't think Joey Logano is in the right. But this time he is. Joey Logano gets completely dumped late race by Ross Chastain for no reason. I understand that you're mad. I think everybody's mad, especially because in Chicago and the way the street course is set up and the way there's massive packs, Logano's not the guy who wrecked you, and he just got mad and lashed out and wrecked Logano for no reason. This is a very rare occasion where I think Joey Logano has a fair point. Now, you can talk about whether it was done, how intentionally it was done and all of this stuff when you look at the history of NASCAR, and especially recent history, and punishments for intentionally wrecking people, admitting after the fact you intentionally did it. I'm not here to speculate about all that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to listen into the driver radio at that time to figure it out. If Ross Chastain did admit that he wrecked them over the radio or after the race, like Joey Logano is claiming, or maybe it's not Logano, other guys are claiming, there should absolutely be a punishment handed down for that. But I don't know for sure. And the last person that deserves to be mad, the fans and every single driver. There was the officiating this week was absolutely ridiculous, and I also think it's a joke that NASCAR is trying to officiate a race in Chicago in Charlotte using cameras. You have to be on site when you're officiating. It streamlines all of the communication. There was multiple times this week where a driver was out and where a driver wrecked and was clearly done, and NASCAR waits too long to throw a caution, and it makes an absolute mockery of the situation, or unfairly benefits other people. Newsflash: when people go into the tire barrier, as hard as Josh Berry and as hard as Cody Ware went into that tire barrier, they're not coming back out. Not without help. So to sit there and hold the caution flag, which normally, I will admit, I'm a fan of, and I appreciate doing, but in this case, it was stupid. I think if you're on site and you have a guy that saw the wreck saying, oh my gosh, we have a wreck in this corner, he hit really hard, maybe you should immediately throw the caution flag. And I know that there was rain coming and people like to complain about green, white checkers, but isn't that what NASCAR has encouraged? Let's have green, white checkers. Let's have overtime finishes. Because if we do that stuff, it ends up in these really cool moments, and we get to show people wrecking each other and spinning out and all this stuff. And that's what we want for the sport. Because to me, the last 5 years, part of what's made some of the drivers upset is that's exactly what NASCAR has striven to be and has done time and time again. And then because I don't know if it's rain, I don't know if it's Shane van Gisbergen, I don't know if it's just that they're flat out incompetent, but to not throw a caution flag on the last lap of the race or next to last to set up the green, white checkered, and then wait until as soon as the leader crosses the line to make the race official, screams either inadequacy or screams everything is rigged or there's something going on behind the scenes. Because that was ridiculous, and it was clear to everybody watching that race that Cody Ware was not getting out of those tires. And listen, Shane van Gisbergen, it's not, gosh forbid somebody else would have won the race, but I mean, he was the best driver that was still racing in that race. They had the best car. So in some ways, maybe that's relief. But I just think that it's even going back to the Josh Berry, NASCAR did an awful job officiating, and I never want them to do another road course again if they do not have officials present at the track. 1,000%. In no way, I don't care what kind of technology you have, should you not be officiating a race from the track on site. That is absolutely ridiculous. So yes, I believe that is the last people who has a right, the last group or the last thing that you can be upset about. Mixed returns with the Chicago race. And is there a change coming to the playoff format? I've heard some rumblings about, seen some tweets. I've heard some drivers, I've heard some owners hint at things about maybe the playoff format's getting changed because of the whole, you just have to win one race, and even if you're 30th in points you're in, and I think that's going thin with a lot of teams, and I think as it starts to affect teams' money, it's going to become more and more of a discussion. And you're like, well, Ben, how's it affecting teams' money? Go listen in to Denny Hamlin's podcast. I'm not always a fan of everything he has to say over there, but I think he did a great job of breaking it down about how a car 30th in points can end up with a 15th place charter, which makes you significantly more money, and a team that is theoretically 10th in points can end up with a charter that's 18th in points because of the way this playoff system is set up and how it encourages teams to get guys like Shane van Gisbergen, who are one-trick ponies, although even if you want to make the debate that he is getting better on ovals. All right, moving on. That was a long storyline. I apologize, but I'm going to try and get through the rest of this quickly so this episode is still around normal time. History at Sonoma. Recent winners in the next gen: Daniel Suarez in 2022, Martin Truex have a good retirement in 2023, and Kyle Larson last year in 2024. The first next-gen Sonoma race not being held in June. Best average finish: Chris Buescher at 3, Michael McDowell at 4, Chase Elliott at 5.7, Ross Chastain at 7.3, and Kyle Larson at 8.0. Kevin Harvick would have the 5th best, but he is retired, so I'm not counting him. As you can see, a lot of legacy NASCAR guys, a lot of guys who have been around for a while that know this track. Chris Buescher, Michael McDowell averaging a top 4 finish here. That is an incredible stat after 3 races. Most top 5s, as you can guess from best average finish: Chris Buescher, all 3 races in the top 5. McDowell and Elliott in 2 of the 3 races. 6 drivers tied at 1. Chastain, Larson, Suarez, Logano, Busch, and Cindric. Most top 10s, 4 drivers have finished top 10 every single time we've gone to Sonoma. Buescher, McDowell, Elliott, and Chastain. Who would have thought they're the top 4 average finishes here? And then 4 drivers tied at 2. Larson, Allmendinger, Bell, and Blaney. Those 4 drivers are also right off of this list and have historically done well here. Favorites to win. It's the same as it was last week on terms of the team rankings. Trackhouse, they have Shane van Gisbergen. Daniel Suarez has won at this track before, and Ross Chastain finds his way to get to top 10s. Maybe he can find his way to a win. Trackhouse, until further notice, is the best road course racers. It seems as if they have dedicated themselves to that. Hendrick Motorsports, they got a mixture of guys that can be good. Obviously, Elliott and Larson and Byron, all 4 of their drivers have won road course races. And they have multiple drivers that historically are very good at Sonoma. Hendrick knows how to build a race car. Joe Gibbs Racing obviously won it 2 years ago with Martin Truex Jr. Joe Gibbs Racing had 4 fast cars last weekend at Chicago, and I think Joe Gibbs Racing quietly is putting together a really, really good road course program. Obviously, everybody saw Ty Gibbs and Denny Hamlin in the top 5, but Chase Briscoe was really good last week until some unfortunate contact caused him to have a flat tire. And then Christopher Bell was running in the top 10 before having some unfortunate contact. Joe Gibbs Racing, I almost put ahead of Hendrick, but I think overall I trust Hendrick just a little bit more. 23XI, Bubba, if he could ever finish at a road course, maybe have some better stats, but Tyler Reddick is right there as well. I mean, Tyler Reddick's one of the best road course racers in the sport. And then RFK Racing, as long as Chris Buescher is there, is always going to be good. I put Spire and RFK almost on the same. RFK, I think, has proven it and has a better history at road course racing. And Ryan Preece and Chris Buescher have both been fast. But Spire, who I kind of have tied with them, Michael McDowell has been super fast. Hocevar's found his way around some of these tracks. And I think Spire has proven, at least this season and maybe even last season, that they are also good. I just give RFK the slight nod because they've done it longer. Driver rankings: Shane van Gisbergen. Everybody knows why he's up there. Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick. Probably the second and third best road course racers. Michael McDowell. After last week, I am convinced he does have a road course win in his career. Michael McDowell, I think, has the last couple of years really, really shown some growth as a road course racer. Ty Gibbs, the last couple road course races, he's been one of the fastest cars on the track, and he desperately needs a win. Look out for him. Kyle Larson kind of on a little bit of a cold streak, but he's still talented. He has a win at this track. Look out for Kyle Larson this week. Christopher Bell, another guy with a road course win this season, has multiple in his career. I like Christopher Bell to be up front a lot this week. Ross Chastain, talked about him a little bit, always seems to find his way around the top 10 finishes, get some points, and obviously Trackhouse knows how to build a fast car. Chris Buescher, again, really good road course racer, only has one win compared to his average finish, but it's kind of, he's almost like a shoe-in every week except last week for a top 10 finish. And then Chase Briscoe has some good finishes on road courses, not necessarily Sonoma, but he's been fast this year. At Chicago, right, got a lot of stage points, arguably deserved to finish in the top 10. Again, really unlucky with a blown tire after contact with Ryan Preece. Put down a great qualifying lap. Chase Briscoe, if you look back at the Xfinity Series, was fast on road courses. I kind of replaced Austin Cindric, who was fast in the Xfinity Series and has some good runs on road courses in the Cup, with Chase Briscoe, because Chase Briscoe has been doing better than Austin Cindric has this year. And AJ Allmendinger is my honorable mention this week. I would not be shocked at all to see him up there mixing it up with some of these great road course racers either. Regular season standings. Now, remember earlier, just like 2 weeks ago, William Byron had a massive lead. It is now down to 13 points. It is still 3 Hendrick Motorsport cars at the top with Byron, Elliott, and Larson, and they are only separated by 20 points. I think if you're looking for the regular season champion, it's coming out of Hendrick Motorsports camp. Maybe I'd feel different if Denny Hamlin ran the Mexico race, but we all know he didn't, and we all know why. Legitimate reason. He's fourth. He's 43 points back, which isn't awful, but he has to pass 3 cars on the way to get there. And Tyler Reddick moving up to 5th, only 48 points back, so there's 5 drivers within 50 points for first place in the regular season standings after William Byron had a rough week last week. Can William Byron build back up that lead, or is Chase Elliott going to continue his ascent through the standings? Christopher Bell getting passed by Tyler Reddick after Reddick had such an incredible week. Bell 67 points off the lead, and then Ryan Blaney 93 off the lead. He was over 100, won a stage last week. Ryan Blaney in 7th, and again, when we get to the power rankings, you'll see it. Those 7, I think, are far and away the best 7 drivers right now, and are the 7 favorites to make the second round, or make the third round of the playoffs, the round of 8, and potentially win a champion. The champion, I'm 98% confident, is coming from one of those 7 drivers. Ross Chastain, 142 back. He's kind of in the second tier that I talk about all the time. He's with 490 points. Chase Briscoe right behind him with 482, and Alex Bowman right behind those 2 guys at 480. 10 points separating those drivers. But those aren't the only drivers I'm going to talk about in this second group. Chris Buescher at 476, Joey Logano at 471. That is positions 8 through 12 in the regular season points, separated by 19 points. Again, the top 10 drivers will all get extra playoff points in the playoffs. So, if you don't feel like you can catch Ryan Blaney, who's in 7th, which mathematically some of these guys I think could in theory, but Blaney is consistently usually faster than them. But you can get as many as 3 extra playoff points, which could be the difference between advancing and getting eliminated. So I'm watching this 8 through 12 to see who gets the extra points between them. And then even Bubba Lawson 13th. Last week, I had him with that group, and he would still be with this group if he didn't kind of get himself wrecked. He lost like 20 positions, so add like 15 to 20 extra points. Well, and even he probably loses them. So let's just say add 10, and he's only 18 back of Logano, and he would only be 25 back of Buescher instead of 30. Yeah, 33. So big difference there for Bubba. In fact, Bubba Wallace and Ryan Preece, all of a sudden, we have an incredibly interesting battle at the cut line for the playoffs. That is on points. Both of these guys could move under. Bubba Wallace needs to start capitalizing on speed. He's only 2 points over the cut line. Ryan Preece is super hot, had a good weekend this week, and has the lead. I believe it was 32 points. Or no, it was 23 points coming into this weekend, and Ryan Preece made up 20. Bubba Wallace and Ryan Preece, Very, very fun battle to watch, assuming nobody behind them wins to kick them both off the cut line. AJ Allmendinger moving all the way up to 15th. Kyle Busch, and another guy with a great week. I think he was like even in 20th at the start of the week, moving all the way up to 16th. Eric Jones kind of treading water on road courses, not his bread and butter, but he was super, super hot for like a month and a half to get up where he is. Austin Cindric has fallen the last couple of weeks all the way down to 18th. Ty Gibbs, who was in the back end of the 20s, these 3 road courses in 5 weeks or whatever it's been, including one good regular oval week, has helped him rebound significantly in points all the way up to 19th. And John Hunter Nemechek, 2 Legacy Motor Club cars in the top 20 this late in the season in points. I don't know if anybody would have predicted that. Now let's see how this translates to the current playoff standings. Kyle Larson. Literally nothing has changed from Kyle Larson and William Byron. They all came in with the same amount of playoff points. Anybody in yellow is locked in with a win. Anybody in blue is currently in on points. Anybody in red is out on points, just to catch you up. You can see the amount of playoff points next to these yellow drivers' names. Again, Shane van Gisbergen went way up because he won a race, so he went from 6 to 11. And Van Gisbergen will now be getting 11 playoff points, which is the 5th most in the series, despite being 27th in points. And I'll be interested to see if these road courses and quick, all these back-to-back road courses get him into the top 25, or if he ends up falling back outside the top 30 after this week, which is the last. After this week, I'm interested to see if he starts to fall back outside the top 30 or not. Ryan Blaney has picked up an extra playoff point as well for winning a stage. Other than that, nobody else near the top picked one up. And then you see right here, Tyler Reddick is feeling comfortable. Alex Bowman didn't gain or lose points to the cut line. Chris Buescher, again, -4 playoff points, but he's still 35 good. You just got to make it in. And then Bubba Wallace, I was talking about that battle, +2, -2. And then the rest of those guys, Allmendinger, Busch, and Eric Jones, 43, 46, and 50 points out of the cut line. That's doable, but when you have to pass a lot of drivers and hope nobody else wins, you'd rather just win your way in. And you're probably not going to be coming to the track every week with as much speed as the people in front of you. All 3 of those drivers are in a very daunting place. But Bubba Wallace and Ryan Preece, man, Preece in an excellent spot to try and point his way in if nobody else wins. In fact, I'll tell you what, this battle at the back half of the playoff standings and the regular season point standings, I would not want to be in the mix down there. Those guys are trading points every single week. You have guys moving up 3, moving down 3, up 2, down 1 every single week. If you don't put together 2 consecutive weeks, you're going to lose all the ground you made up the day before. It is a hard time to be at the bottom of that point, to be near the bottom of that points battle. Driver power rankings, everybody's favorite time of the week. And a lot of the guys near the top, especially those top 300 drivers, didn't have great weeks, but I still have Chase Elliott there. He's still been hot. He's still the most recent winner out of those guys near the top. Denny Hamlin had a great week when it comes to the finish and made up a lot of ground in the points. Denny Hamlin I have moving the second. Kyle Larson in the third because he at least got a top 15 finish out of everything. Byron with that DNF falling. Sorry, I couldn't get that out. Falling all the way down to 4. To 4th, which is the lowest he's been in a long time on my list. Tyler Reddick with a good week, moving up to 5th. I would have liked to move him up higher because I'm like, wow, Reddick was probably the second best driver on Sunday with how many points he scored and almost getting all the way back to the front on new tires. But I still feel like season long, William Byron has had too good of a season overall for me to just completely move him all the way down to 5. Christopher Bell is still 6. Ryan Blaney is still 7. As you can see, those drivers in green, I mean, now all of them except Reddick have won, but you're still really confident Reddick's making the playoffs. Those 7 drivers I feel like are far and away the S tier, way above everybody else. Then we get into this yellow tier. Chase Briscoe, again, really solid for the first two stages and was really good until 5 laps left when Priest kind of got into the back of him and you saw him lose a tire. Until that point, he and Reddick were right there as the two best drivers of the day. Briscoe, I won't move anybody behind Blaney in front of Blaney because Blaney got the stage point, but Briscoe could be right on Blaney's heels, in my opinion, if it weren't for cutting a tire. Ross Chastain right behind him. Again, Chastain seems like he always finds a way to have a solid finish on these road courses. But not a lot of stage points from Chastain, which is why I gave Briscoe the edge, and Briscoe seemed to have more speed. Alex Bowman with another good day, especially after discarding Bubba. Another top 10 finish. Bowman is starting to stack good days now. Might be the most streaky driver, most streaky team in all of NASCAR. And then Chris Buescher, I guess moving down really, not a great day for him. Not the typical Chris Buescher road course performance you're expecting. Joe Logano, well, not really a road course day, was road course racer, not a road course guy. Was having an okay whatever day, and then it got a little bit worse after he got wrecked by Chastain. But he still has a win. He's still top 12 in points, which is a good sign. Not going to drop him below somebody that as much as, even if I didn't think it was right to drop him lower than 12. He is a 3-time champion after all. And as you can see here, I explained the yellow, which I still have Bubba Wallace included in, by the way. But again, if you're new, this is your first episode in a while. Joe Logano gets his own category because he's either really good or really bad, and he's liable to get hot and just win the championship out of nowhere. But he's also liable to keep on being inconsistent and end up finishing at the back. So who knows? Ryan Preece is almost with this yellow group. I'm almost convinced he has speed on a lot of different type of tracks. He's making up ground to make the playoffs. He's only 2 points out, has some good finishes, has some stage wins. Ryan Preece, more and more, I'm getting convinced, belongs in this category with the yellow drivers, who are drivers that should be shoe-ins for the playoffs, should be in the playoffs every year, but maybe not necessarily championship contenders, right? They're kind of that second tier behind the green guys. And on terms of Joe Logano, he could be green, he could be yellow, he could be red, and we're about to get into the red guys. Bubba Wallace in 14th, just because he lost so much ground to Preece in points. And Preece is a little bit, I think, a lot more momentum than Bubba has right now, but Bubba has more speed on a week-to-week basis, just needs the finishes to start adding up, in my opinion. AJ Allmendinger, great weekend for AJ Allmendinger. Made up a lot of ground in the point standings, going into a track that he has been really, really good at, a track that he really, really likes in Sonoma. Big things happening for AJ Allmendinger and colleague. Is this the year they finally get into the playoffs? Maybe. Dinger is definitely doing everything in his power, and he's definitely has speed on more than just road courses this season. Shane van Gisbergen having 16. Again, when you're 27th in season points, even after you won 2 races and got a whole bunch of stage points, it's hard for me to move you too high. But I do finally have him in the top 16. And if you're wondering what that yellow-green color that Shane van Gisbergen and Austin Cindric are in, it is guys who have won a race, but I don't think are a threat to do anything in the playoffs. I see them at most winning and making it through one round of the playoffs. And if Van Gisbergen makes it through one round, he might make it to 2 because the Roval is still in that round of 12. But I digress. That green category of driver, guys who have clinched with the win, but I don't think are big threats. Josh Berry would also go in that. But as you can see, I don't even have Josh Berry in my top 20 for power rankings after our horrible week this week, going into a track that, Barry's not a road course guy, right? But yeah, back to Shane van Gisbergen. Again, love him on the road courses. I think he's starting to get a little bit better on the ovals, but he's still not nowhere near good enough to compete at the highest levels of this sport. But there's still plenty of time for him to do that. And as long as he's winning races, he's making the playoffs, which makes the team more money for their charter, right? Ty Gibbs, another guy who's been super hot, been very, very good on the road courses. And I expect him to continue to chip away at the points. He's in the 2 best teams in NASCAR, Hendrick and Joe Gibbs. As long as you're in Joe Gibbs' equipment, the expectation is that you're winning races and making the playoffs. Will Ty Gibbs ever get that first win? You have to think he will. Maybe it's this week. Maybe it's not. But he's definitely starting to recover from this massive hole he dug himself in. Kyle Busch with a better week. Top 10 finish. Solid day. And kind of like Ty Gibbs, trying to build momentum and either win a race or build momentum to take advantage of a situation where you might be collecting a lot more points than somebody else and can jump into the playoffs. Again, I don't know if Ty Gibbs or Kyle Busch, either one, will be able to point their way in, but they're still building good momentum. They're still slowly making ground on those in front of them, and maybe that momentum can get them a win. Austin Cindric has just had a rough couple of weeks, and he's supposed to be a good road course guy, and I do think he is. Part of it's bad luck. I think part of it is I don't know. I don't think Penske has top 5 speed at a lot of these road courses. But, again, Sonoma's been in the sport a long time. I would expect to see a little bit more balance throughout the field at Sonoma this week. So maybe Austin Cindric can finally find a way to get another top 10 on a road course. And then Erik Jones, kind of, road courses aren't his style, but he's found a way to stay top 20 in points after that super hot stretch he had where he was getting top 10 finishes on ovals. And I think if he can find his way to a decent day on Sunday, I think he can be right back there on points amongst those guys and have the opportunity to chip away on ovals, because it seems like Legacy Motor Club is starting to get a little bit more speed as the season goes on. And just maybe Erik Jones can start flirting with playoff potential speed if he's not there yet. Thank you, everybody, for listening this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your hot takes in the comments. Let me know who you think might win this week. Let me know if I'm completely off base on anything. Let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me. And also, just because I am seeing a lot of discourse in the internet, everybody's weekly homework, put in the comment section below, at me on Twitter, and let me know if you think there needs to be less road courses on the NASCAR schedule. It seems to be one of the main topics this week amongst the industry, inside the industry. Please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe. Come follow me on X. I got into it this week on Twitter. If you want to see who, what sport, come and check out my Twitter. Again, always feel free to at me, ask questions, tell me stuff on there. Thank you for taking time out of your days, weeks, and lives for listening. Find a couch, watch some sports this weekend. Stay safe out there. Crazy times. Peace out.